Hello, friend. This is Legal Design Thinking in Real Life, a weekly live provided by Lawyers Design School. And I'm so happy to see you with us today. I'm your host, Hannele Korhonen, and I'm the founder of Lawyers Design School. And I'm super delighted to be here with Kat Moon. She's the director of innovation design in Vanderbilt Law School, and she teaches in the program on law and innovation, PoLI. And what's really interesting is that one of her courses is called Designing a Life in the Law, which is our key theme today. We'll explore the concept of design your life and how lawyers can benefit from using design thinking approach in their careers and lives. Hello, Kat, and welcome to Legal Design
Hey,
Thinking in Real Life.
hello. Thank you so much for having me, and it's great to be here. Great to see you. And I'm gonna have to dodge the sun like coming in the window across from me, but good morning, everyone. Good afternoon, depending on where you are.
It's
It's
super
great to be
early.
here.
It's super early for you. Where are you joining us?
I am in Nashville, just outside of Nashville, and it is looking at my clock 7:01 a.m. here. So um I didn't get up any earlier, but I normally don't like dress and put on jewelry at 7 o'clock in the morning. So my cat was following me around like, "What are you doing? Why are you doing that?" Uh,
Oh, thank you. I so appreciate you waking up early for us.
oh, I'm happy to. It is so good to see you.
Yeah. Hey, before we dive into the topic of the day, I'm curious to hear a brief introduction about yourself and your background. Your bio
Yeah,
was so long that I was not able
yeah,
to
yeah,
tell everything, but I was
yeah.
hoping that maybe you can tell something more.
Absolutely, yes. I am thrilled that you did not read through my entire bio. So yeah, I've been teaching at Vanderbilt for 7 years now in the program on law and innovation, PoLI. And so my focus in my teaching to both JD students and to practicing legal professionals is really to help folks figure out how we make law better, how we innovate the delivery of legal services. So we focus on legal services delivery in PoLI, and it's, a fabulous playground for me because I get to think about and focus on what are those skills and ideas and themes that we really need to be focusing on for our law students so that they enter the practice prepared for leading in the 21st century practice of law. As you know, as everyone should know by now, we face a lot of really substantial challenges in our profession and in the industry. And so my focus is on how can we bring the tools, methods, processes, mindsets of innovation to meaningfully solving those challenges and problems. And before I started teaching, I practiced law. I still have an active law license, so I try to avoid using it at all costs, and practiced law for about 20 years. So I bring to my work as a teacher and researcher all of the experience from my practice. So I started digging into innovating delivery of legal services in my actual work. So it's not just theoretical for me. I bring this practical experience with it to this as well. So it's kind of a nutshell.
Thank you. It must be
Uh-huh.
super interesting to bring the practical
Yeah,
experience and then actually do something about the experience and make it better for the future
I try.
generations.
Try. Yes.
So what about this concept of design your life? What is it
Yeah.
about and how did you come? So that's a new course, or have you been doing that for long?
Yes, it is. So each year I create and introduce at least one new course into the Poly curriculum. And this year it is designing a life in the law. And I have always firmly believed that when it comes to innovating in the legal profession, innovating the delivery of legal services, we have to focus on the people doing the work when we think about how we are designing things from a human-centered perspective, right? Um, I agree with and completely support the notion of client-centered legal services delivery. However, the client is not the only stakeholder in this. And so it really, in many ways, is turning on its head the traditional lawyer-centric focus of our legal profession because it is very lawyer-centric. The irony is that the nature of the lawyer centricity is actually not very healthy and good for lawyers. And so, how can we make change to create value for the people doing the work, for lawyers and other legal professionals? And a number of years ago, I started thinking about how we can take the tools, methods, mindsets specifically of human centered design and use those personally, right? Um, to use those to design our own pathway, our own work. And I'm definitely not unique in this. I will say I feel like it was kind of a concurrent thing, but there are a lot of books. This is one of them, right? Designing your work life. So Bill Burnett and Dave Evans, a number of years ago, started teaching a course, an undergrad course at Stanford, which became like the most popular course at Stanford, and so on and so forth. So there are a lot of folks that come before me doing this. A great example as well is Bridget Carr. She's a clinical professor at Michigan. So she and her one of her colleagues have been teaching a course. I think this is the third or fourth year they launched right as the pandemic was starting. And so I definitely am inspired by, in many ways, kind of ride on the coattails of the work that others have done before me. Um, but it also is really inspired by the experience I've had working with my students for 7 years now. And so in my design course that I teach, it was the first course I designed and launched at Vanderbilt. It's called Legal Problem Solving. In that course, I would always start the semester having the students do a persona exercise, but they were the persona. And so it was a way of helping them develop self-awareness about how they saw themselves as someone about to enter the practice of law and how that was projected out into the world. And so it gave them a way to really dig into building some self-awareness. And consistently, I would have students who reacted very strongly to this exercise. And sometimes initially it was very much a holy cow moment because they would realize in building their self-awareness, like the path I'm on really isn't consistent with who I am. And boy, this sure does make a whole lot of things more clear for me. And so I saw little kind of anecdotal evidence that students really needed a guided opportunity to dig much more deeply into building self awareness and then thinking about how they take that and plan their path going forward. So I saw this need. And so I kind of put all of this into the mix and thought about how I could do this through a formal course structure. And voila, I'm now, I think today I will teach week 9 of 13. So, we're almost done now. We're very close. And it's been fantastic.
It sounds incredible. Tell me more about that exercise. Was it like the the light bulb moment? Was it about like I'm not supposed to be doing law, or is it like the path is or is it something about the profession, or what was the scale of the?
Yeah. So, well, I think so. The initial exercise that kind of triggered all of this, and I did kick off my course this semester having the students do that exercise. And the exercise is it's called the Persona Notepad, and it has the students um, craft a persona, which is a common tool in service design, right?
Yeah.
And they are crafting the persona of a first year associate for the purpose of helping a law firm um, create the first year associate position. Like here is the person who you are creating this position for, right? So, but instead of thinking about like the generic first year associate, they are the persona. And so it has them go through all the aspects of the persona, but it's about themselves. And so they have to think, like they have to pick a quote. What is a quote that really captures, um, what I seek from this role, what I want to get out of my work? Um, they have to do the think, feel, do. They, have to go through all of that, but it's about themselves. And so then theoretically, they take this persona and hand it over to the law firm and say, okay, create a role for me, right? Um, and then we talk about, so what is the kind of role that you're actually stepping into, and how closely does it meet the needs and wants and desires of you and your persona? And that's where some students are like, it doesn't. Um, and this might be a problem.
Mm.
And it without fail, I have at least one student every time we do it who has a very strong reaction. And more than once, it has led a student to stop in that moment and really redesign their path. Um, I had one student who came to me and she said, this has helped me understand why I haven't wanted to interview with firms. I haven't, like, she thought something was wrong with her. And now she realizes that it's just that this isn't her path, right? Like she's not the person that this job is designed for. And so it really gave her permission to say, okay, that's not me. Now I'm going to go find what is. And now that I better understand myself, I can think about what that path is much more intentionally for me. And so there's a lot of power there, for those who are open to tapping into it, right? Um, and and even for those who are like, I'm totally cool with the path I'm on, I think that the nature of the course and the work we're doing together is it can be really hard work, but it's also fun, and we make it joyful, right? So it's also like just a really nice anecdote or option to kind of lift the heaviness of so much of what law school is. Antidote, I guess, is the word I'm looking for. So
Oh, I wish I had that
yeah,
course
that's
when I
about the
was in I
persona
was in
exercise.
I was in law school. Uh, you mentioned about
I
the challenges in our profession. What do you think? What are those most common challenges from lawyers' perspective that we face at the moment?
Yeah. So, I mean, I think the two big ones that consistently stand out for me, the first being that, and I think this is pretty consistent globally, but in the United States, um, we we help far less than half the people who need civil legal help. So, depending on what research you look at, you can look at Legal Services Corporation's latest study, which came out last year, that shows that only 8% of low income people get legal help. So 92% of those folks get no help. And I think the numbers are slightly better for folks who are squarely in the middle class in the US, but we're still not anywhere near 20%. Um, so what we also know is that over time, lawyers serving corporations, that number has grown, while lawyers serving individual people, right, people law, that number has shrunk. And so that gap between service is just becoming wider. So what we have is a crisis of legal help in the United States. It is truly a crisis. And we have all the facts and figures to establish that. And we seem to be either incapable or unwilling or some combination of both to make the radical changes that are required. So I think that that's our primary and fundamental challenge that also in the US, in most jurisdictions, the vast majority, only lawyers can help people with the legal problem. And so it's up to us right now to fix it. Like we're the only ones who can fix it because we don't let anyone else onto our playground, right? Um, so I see that as just a tremendous challenge. And from that falls a whole lot of other things. I think for me, the second piece of that is the fact that we also are just not a very healthy profession. So, current and longitudinal research shows that lawyers suffer from anxiety, depression, suicide, suicidal ideation, substance abuse at much higher rates, typically around 3 times those folks in the general population. And so we're not serving the people who we are entrusted to serve. And too many of us are not healthy. So to me, that's a really, the combination of those two challenges. If we just focus on those two things alone, I think a lot of good follows. And they're systemic challenges, right? They are born out of a system that was designed in the second industrial revolution, which is a time that ended 100 years ago. We're in the fourth industrial revolution now. Um, so I could go on with a lot more granular detail, but I think those two for me are the big ones, and they really motivate almost simultaneously the work I do and the mission I'm on to make law better.
It's so crucial that we look at the challenges from both from the people's point of view and the
Mhm.
system's point of view, but also from the lawyer's point of view. What are kind of the personal
Yeah.
challenges and like the mental health problems
Yes.
and all that. So we often forget us ourselves in the process.
Mhm.
So what do you think is
Yeah.
the
So,
value for yeah, go ahead.
well, I was just going to say, I think that when folks talk about client-centered legal services delivery, like I'm 100% on board with that. And so it's not or, it's and, right? So if we're truly doing human-centered uh, improvement, right, and innovation, then we're taking into account the people who are delivering the legal services as well. And as I said, this isn't the traditional form of kind of lawyer narcissism, for lack of a better word, um, designing legal systems that serve them primarily. Because again, the irony is these systems we've designed that serve lawyers so well, like any court process serves lawyers better than self-represented litigants, right? Um, but the irony is we've designed these things in ways that do not serve us well as humans, right? So yes, I think that the people delivering are part of the stakeholder mix, the humans in this system. So
Definitely. And since we designed it in the first place, we can redesign it.
exactly, and that's the thing. Like this all was just a big experiment to start with. When folks say, "Well, we can't change this because we know it works." Well, first of all, it's not working. It's not working for the vast majority of everyone in the system. It's not working for people doing the work, and it's not working for the people who we're supposed to serve. So that's bullshit that it's working. Um, and we made it up in the first place. This is all a choice. And so when folks say we can't change things, I'm like, that's a choice. Yes, we can. You just choose to, or you choose not to. So um, I get really frustrated with people who demand data to justify change. And my response is all the data is screaming if we don't change, we are looking at cataclysmic failure pretty much for everyone. 8% of clients will be fine, and maybe half the lawyers aren't miserable. And I know a lot of people who are really happy and thriving in the practice of law. And from a positive psychology standpoint, let's study those people and figure out how and why it's working so well for them so others can learn. But anyhow, I digress a little bit. I'll turn it back over to you.
But if you think about these challenges, which are huge, how do you think that
Mhm.
design thinking can cure them, or what's the role that design thinking can have?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think that the whole power of human-centered design and design thinking is just to give us a way to approach creative problem solving, right? Um, I mean, the primary foundation in all my courses, but specifically in the current Designing Your Life course, is to really embrace and use the mindsets of human-centered design. So first of all, the power of optimism, right? The power to say, there are solutions to these problems, and I can help find them, and I can help create the solution. So the belief that these problems can be fixed and that we are up to the task. I think we have to have that optimistic mindset. The mindset of trying things, right? Running experiments. Um, we created or enabled these big problems to happen. And it's on us to try things to figure out how we solve them. So, experimentation, curiosity, right? So, that's foundational. Being curious. And I think of empathy really as a part of curiosity. But as we are problem solving, putting ourselves in the shoes of other stakeholders who are part of this system. And and I think that's putting ourselves in the shoes of clients, putting ourselves in the shoes of self-represented litigants. Um, for those of us who thrive in the legal profession, putting ourselves in the shoes of people who are not thriving, so we better understand the challenges that our fellow lawyers and other legal professionals have. Um, so I think there's like incredible power in just embracing these mindsets because lawyers, according to research, skew towards skepticism. And while skepticism isn't the opposite of optimism, like it's towards like the opposite of optimism, right? And we need the fuel that human-centered design offers to really spur and support our creativity. And then, of course, in addition to the mindsets, there are specific methods, there are specific processes that give us an entry point into trying to find solutions. And so I think those have incredible value. And I'm not saying it's the end all be all only solution. And my focus is on innovation um, overall, with human centered design being a part of that, right? So, but I think, look, I've found so many service design tools that actually can be turned into individual life design tools, the persona exercise being one of them. And so that's just a very helpful way to give individual humans ways into being more intentional and thoughtful about their professional and life path in general.
And I've also found that it's super powerful to use those service design tools like persona
Mhm,
or service journey or whatever.
mhm.
So kind of using the lawyers or as themselves as the persona, because then they are able to have those aha moments that okay,
Exactly,
there's human
exactly,
behind all of this.
exactly. That is so true. Um, I have the same observation. Yes.
Well, what do you think of the challenges? You mentioned the skepticism, or what was the word that you used with
Mm.
lawyers? What are the challenges when lawyers start to dig into human-centered design?
Yeah, so I have to say my students have really embraced it wholeheartedly. So, but they're not yet lawyers, right? So they're still on their journey to becoming, and that's one reason why I just love working with law students because they um, they don't yet have the mindsets of a practicing attorney. They haven't, I call it assimilation. They haven't yet assimilated into the existing systems. And so they're a little more of tabula rasa. Um, I think with practicing lawyers, the nature of our work simply can be so all consuming that I think it's atypical for someone to be really intentional and thoughtful about pulling back and pulling up and pulling out periodically to assess where they are and how they are, right? And so just little things can help folks leverage just small moments of being able to pull back and say, okay, you know, how am I doing? How are things going? Um, and again, I think there are a lot of what I've adapted into design tools that help people do that. I've kind of merged a lot of tools that have come out of positive psychology research um, with human-centered design methods. And so it gives people just really easy ways to start the self-exploration and to start checking in with themselves. And so my goal with that is to make it feel like a process that someone can just commit, like literally, whether it's 10 minutes a day or once a month or whatever, right? So they can feel like they can just do something not overwhelming, something kind of small. Again, it's sort of a tiny experiment. So, for instance, my students they're working in their groups on putting together what we're calling a minute of life design cards. So they're these really cool cards, and I don't have them. Normally they're on my desk, but they're not here right now because I took them to school for my students. But they're called a minute of design cards, and it just gives a small creative challenge for a team to work on and just to get the creative juices flowing from a design's perspective. So we're creating something similar with methods of life design, with the goal being that someone could just once a week say, I'm going to spend 10 minutes on a minute of life design card and take this time for self-exploration, checking in with myself, and with ultimately the goal being that, again, that self-awareness, which is foundational, right? Self-awareness is foundational to all the work in human-centered design. You can't be empathetic if you're not self-aware.
And
So helping
empathetic
folks.
for yourself as well, feeling empathy for
Exactly,
yourself as well.
exactly, exactly, right? Self-awareness, self-compassion,
Yeah.
self-empathy, has it all starts with the individual human doing the work. And so this just gives people a way to ease into that, which hopefully feels accessible and enjoyable, fun. Like I think like the goal is, how do we support thriving in the legal profession? And I choose the word thrive very intentionally because thriving isn't only being happy, thriving isn't only feeling joy, thriving isn't all positive. Thriving is the whole picture, right? Holistically. And thriving also means having grit, um, you know, being self aware, being able to handle challenges, in addition to finding those ways to be happy and experience joy in your work. So I'm hopeful that this approach is going to make it, that lawyers will be curious and want to try some of these things.
Oh, that's so beautiful, and thank you for sharing so concrete examples and something that you can do like 10 minutes a day, and that
Yes.
can change
Mhm.
so much. There's actually one question in the chat.
Oh, yeah.
Marlene says care and nurturing of teams is critical, but also somewhat behind the scenes. What are some tips to make the value of this more visible?
So, I want to make sure I'm understanding the query. So if we're talking about how can individuals on a team, I guess I want to understand exactly what the query is.
Are you, Marlene, there? Can you clarify the question for us a little bit? Are
I
you
want to
able to
make sure
see
I
the
answer
chat?
it correctly.
Yeah.
I don't have it up. No, I'm
Okay,
sorry.
yeah.
I was worried I
Let,
would be
let's
just
let's
passing the
wait
chat.
for yeah, let's wait for the
Okay.
clarification.
Well, I'm happy also just to talk about how this work fits into
Mm,
teamwork.
yeah. Yeah.
So I think foundational, again, all the data and research shows that foundational to the successful teamwork, being a successful team member, is psychological safety. The people doing this work together have to feel safe um, with the other people they're working to try things. They have to feel safe to be able to do their work authentically. And so, a foundation, if psychological safety is foundational, um, the folks coming to do the work, and most certainly the leaders of the team, again, self awareness is critical. Understanding what you're bringing to this, understanding your biases, understanding your strengths, as much about yourself so you understand where you fit in the team dynamic, what you need, how you can communicate these things. And so um, I have students work in teams, and a big part of that teamwork is first getting to know each other really well so that everyone understands here's who I am, here's what I'm bringing to this. And this is not hard work. This work doesn't take years to do. Like there are simple tools that can help folks build this psychological safety groundwork. But I think um, it really depends on team leadership acknowledging here are the elements that make our team strong and effective. And here are ways that we can build this together and giving individuals permission, giving them ways to do the work, giving them absolutely leading by example. Look, some of the folks who I see doing the most amazing work leading teams in the legal profession every day show up acknowledging here's who I am and here's the work I'm doing so that I can do better, so that I can support you doing better. And I can give a great example. Kenny Robertson leads a team at NatWest, which is formerly Royal Bank of Scotland. And he has been doing very intentional human centered design, team building work that builds in helping his team really understand here are my strengths. Here's what I need to work on. He uses the Delta model for lawyer competency. We can talk a little bit about that, or you can go to designyourdelta.com and learn about it. Um, but the underlying point is giving his team tools so that they can develop self awareness and very intentionally understand here's how I contribute, here's how I want to contribute, here's the path I'm on. And all of that helps everyone come together and do better for the organization and for themselves. And I have no idea if that's responsive to the question.
But that's a perfect example, and I'm sure that that's quite visible to the outside as well. That is a
Mhm.
successful leadership style. I can imagine.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. Yes. Well, I think that the design work on the individual level, in many ways, is absolutely critical to a well-functioning team. Um, so I think those two kind of work together this way.
For sure. Uh, I describe you as a legal rebel who has taken the path less traveled. Uh, what has your own experience been like, kind of designing your life through law and in law?
Yeah. Yeah. So I started thinking, kind of adopting the design your life mindset in 2016. So I've been practicing, for 18, 19 years at that point, and I just realized like I was ready for a pivot. I was ready for a change. And I would say up until that time, my path, while it had been atypical, had probably not been as intentional as it could have been. I had yet not yet availed myself of sort of using these tools for myself personally. Um, so in 2016, I really did embrace this concept of, okay, how am I going to create sort of my next chapter path going forward? And so that's when I started really working on my own self awareness, right? Like, okay, who am I right now at this point in my life? What's important to me? What strengths do I bring to whatever work it is I'm going to do? How does that fit in with the rest of my life? Kind of trying to answer all those big questions and funnel down as much as possible. And so that's when, um, you know, thinking about what is my journey map look like, right? I do an exercise now with students, and I redo it myself periodically, and it's called Odyssey planning, and it's a term that was created by the Design Your Life folks, Bill Burnett and Dave Evans, but I've tweaked it for my purposes, and so I started engaging in that process, and I think what it did for me personally, it is much less about this is the thing I'm going to go do, and it's much more about okay, now that I understand what's important to me and what I want to focus on, now I can look for opportunities that are consistent with this, right? Look for, create. Um, So I really focused on opportunities versus like, this is the one thing, this is the one goal. And what that did for me is when the opportunity to work and teach at Vanderbilt came about, I was ready to say, yes, that's it. That is what connects in with what I need and want right now, professionally and personally. And so it really just that self-awareness, I think more than anything gives us the gift of being able to see those opportunities and really um, take advantage of the things that are going to most support our thriving. And that's absolutely what it did for me. It becomes a really helpful lens, a navigation tool, much more than a destination, right? I didn't know what the destination looked like. But I knew enough about what kind of trip I wanted to take, that I could say, okay, this is the trip I'm gonna take right now, and this is the odyssey I'm gonna be on right now, and we'll see where it leads.
So many times, if you just concentrate on the what is currently happening, you kind of limit yourself, the options that could be outside of that bubble. But that's so powerful that when you
Absolutely.
start looking at what's important to you and kind of take the path instead of the
Yeah.
destination, it opens up the
Yes,
world.
yes. Well, and it absolutely does. And I think too, I see with law students, and I'm not speaking just about my students because I talk to students all over the world, that especially in law school, they're typically presented this menu of options of here's what you do next once you graduate and have a law degree. And that's just it's a limited menu, right? It's a very limited menu. And so, one of my fundamental goals is just helping students widen their view of what might, how might they find that opportunity or set of opportunities that's going to best support their thriving. How can they widen that focus and think both more creatively and also more intentionally? And that doesn't mean they may stay on the odyssey that they entered the class. The goal is not to take them away from what they think their current path is. It's to help them make sure that they are doing all they can to ensure that that is the right path for them. And I think the other element is like, look, there's not a whole lot we as individual humans can control in this world. And I think one of the, right, a lot of things um, happen because of circumstances that are completely outside of our control. And so I think having a really strong sense of self and um, being able to use that as a navigation tool really helps you leverage taking advantage of the things that you can control in this, very ambiguous world that we live in. And that to me is like an antidote to anxiety and a whole lot of things um, that the ambiguity can otherwise, cause. Yeah.
That's actually a perfect segue for the final question, because I wanted to ask you, what would you say to someone who is maybe watching this and
Mm,
feeling anxiety or feeling like they are
mhm.
surviving but not thriving, and they would need
Yeah.
to look at the next step? What would you like to say to them?
Um, I think absolutely the foundation for all of this is getting in touch with yourself and really taking some time to check in with yourself, do some things that help you understand exactly where you are across the spectrum, the elements of like humanity. So, um, how are you as a professional, as a friend, a spouse, like whatever those important things are in your life? Kind of really map out where you are. So there is, and I would be happy if there's a way to share this with folks. Um, there's a tool called the PERMA map. It is a positive psychology tool, and it really helps you assess in the moment kind of where you are in life. And I think the place you start is where you are. Let me figure out where I am, and that helps you identify these are the things that are important to me that I want to work on. And so you start by with the PERMA map, and I think that's incredibly insightful and powerful. Um, and I think you do all of this absolutely with key mindsets, right? You are choosing to come to this work. I'm optimistic that if I'm not thriving right now, I am optimistic that I can figure out what I need to do in order to thrive. And that power is something I have, and I can leverage that. So optimism, curiosity, coming to it with so as a lot of people know, my mantra is I live in the open-mindedness of not knowing enough about anything. That's from a Mary Oliver poem, Luna. And so come with it that you have a lot to learn to figure out what's going to help you thrive. So come to it with humble curiosity, and then approach it with an experimental mindset. Um, look, this is lifelong work. And the gift of that is that you, as a human, can try things, right? You can run tiny experiments to figure out here's what you need to do, here's what you need to change to create or find that space in which you can thrive in all the ways that you need to thrive. And so come to it with optimism, humble curiosity, and wanting to run these tiny experiments. And I think that's how you start on the journey. But I'm happy to share the PermaMap tool. Folks can reach out to me if there's a way you can post it. However, we
Yeah,
can
we
do
can
that.
post
But
it
I'm
in
happy.
the comments. Yeah,
Okay,
afterwards,
awesome. Yeah,
definitely,
yeah.
definitely. Hey,
Let's do
thank you
it.
so much. Thank you so much for I don't know, for everything that you do, and for your time today. I mean, you're the human with the big H, capital H. Where can people learn more about you? I for one want to recommend follow Kat on Twitter so that you get more doses of Mary Oliver to your feed every day. But is there other
Um,
way to
yes. So
learn more about you and your
yeah.
work?
Well, thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you so much for your very kind words. And I'm at Inspired Cat on Twitter. I am also trying to be more present on LinkedIn, so folks can ping me there. Although I do not enjoy in mail, so if you message me in LinkedIn, I may or may not ever respond. Just FYI. Um, and then my human-centered design course, Legal Problem Solving, has a website, legalproblemsolving.org. So I invite folks to check that out, although I'm going to be updating it a lot for the fall semester when we kick off a new course. And then, um, anybody and everyone who's going to be at the Legal Design Summit in Helsinki in September, I'm going to be there for a full week. I'm going to be there for Brain Factory and the summit. And so I would love for that just to be one giant, party of all my fellow human centered designers. So I would love to see everyone there. So, yeah. So, folks, reach out. I would love to hear from folks.
That's
And
perfect.
thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much for hosting me. It has been an absolute joy to talk with you. Absolute joy. And I can't wait to see you in September.
Yeah, we'll meet each other in real life in Helsinki at
Yes.
least.
Yes.
Hey,
Yes.
thank you everyone for joining us today, and we'll see you next week. Thank you, Kat. Bye bye.
Thank you. Bye.